You are now listening to Fighting for Your Life podcast. I am your host, Miguel Ramirez. On today's episode, we have one of my first training partners, one of the first friends that I made at Carlos Furias Jiu-Jitsu, a Jiu-Jitsu purple belt, entrepreneur, supporter, and friend of the show, Eric Vogt.
Hey.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Dude.
Again.
Yeah. So you've been on our other podcast, Opposites Attract podcast, right when we first started.
That's right.
Yeah. And I mean, you've been supporting us ever since the very beginning. Really appreciate it.
I remember those days when you're a white belt.
Yeah. No, I'm a little bit further than that now.
A little bit further now. Yeah. We were talking about some things like all these things that are going through my head as far as like what I thought jiu-jitsu was.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be completely the opposite of that.
Dude, I remember when we recorded, there was a really good, we were talking about like the toolbox.
Right.
The jiu-jitsu toolbox, like the black belt has all the tools in the toolbox. They know what to do.
Yes.
And we just smash everything with the hammer as a white belt.
That's it. We just have a hammer and a wrench.
That's it.
You know, like channel locks. That's it.
That's
right?
it.
And so all we're trying to do is survive at that point, right? I mean, just survive.
Yep.
And breathe. That's the one thing, we don't even think about.
Dude, that is something that as you train or, when you take a break for a little bit and you come back, you're like, oh crap, I got to stop holding my breath. Right. I got to like breathe through some of this stuff. And yeah. But
those are good. I mean, it seems so long ago, but at the same time, I don't feel like we're that far along from where we were before. Right.
Yeah.
And it's because it's so hard. It's so difficult.
There's so much to it.
Yeah. A lot to it.
So, I mean, we wanted to get into your fighting martial arts journey, your history of it. And so where did you grow up originally?
I grew up in San Diego, California.
In San Diego?
Yeah.
Okay. Was there any like martial arts in your house growing up at all?
The only martial arts were on TV and in magazines. I was into the Kung Fu magazine and Bruce Lee. And so, as a kid, I would make nunchucks, out of old broom handles, and we start swinging those things around there. But I always wanted to take karate, but I never did.
Okay.
And so I grew up kind of liking martial arts, but never really did it until I had kids. And so when my kids started to get a little older.
Wow. So that was like way further on.
I didn't do anything up until, like I said, my kids, it's actually my oldest son, he was 4 years old. And we said, we want to get him into martial arts since I always wanted to do it as a kid, but I never got the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. And
so I said, well, let's put him into martial arts. And so, we thought about karate, and then we thought about taekwondo, and there was Muay Thai that was going on down by us where we lived. I heard about jiu-jitsu. In fact, my brother-in-law practiced jiu-jitsu here in Arizona at the time. And he was a blue belt. Maybe he was a purple belt at the time. I can't remember. He said, you have to put him in jiu-jitsu. And so we looked into jiu-jitsu, and we said, okay, this is probably pretty good. There's no striking. We really didn't like that. We went
around a 4-year-old getting punched in the head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we settled on this school that was close to us. 4 years old. He was almost 5. Put him into jiu-jitsu, and he liked it. And so,
was this back in San Diego?
This was in San Diego.
Okay.
And I used to take him, 3 or 4 times a week. I would take him to jiu-jitsu. And the funny story about this is the coach at the time said, you need to try this. He was telling me.
I was about to ask. I was like, did you start with him? Because that's how it goes. You take a kid to jiu-jitsu and the parents get hassled. It's like, hey, have you done it? You're going to get in?
Yes. And
put a gi on.
That's exactly what he did. And I said, nope, this is not for me. I am not doing it. I do not want to get next to somebody that I don't know, get all sweaty next to them, get in their personal space, them get into my personal space. I'm not about that. I'm not doing that. And sure enough, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And so, it was probably a good 2 years.
Really?
Or so that they were going to jiu-jitsu. My younger son was actually started to do it too. And I don't know what it was. I can't tell you exactly what it was, but I said, I'm going to try it. I'll just try it. And from that day that I tried it, I haven't stopped.
That was it.
That was it.
Man, that's cool.
It was very strange in that what I thought it was turned out to be something completely different.
Yeah.
And as you're taking your kids there and you're watching them, they make it look so easy.
Right.
Like that's not difficult to do. But when you try it, it's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that intrigued me, that it was so hard.
So when the kids were first in jiu-jitsu and you weren't doing it, were you like looking stuff up, or did you know any of the stuff? Because I know like your story and my story are very similar. Like the kids, my daughter Audrey, she started first, and because my son was still a little young, and then he got into it. And I think she was doing it for probably about 2 years, and he was doing it for maybe like close to a year, and then I started. But in that time, I would be looking stuff up, or I'd be paying attention to like the stuff that they would be teaching them, and then when we would get home, I'd be like, all right, let me see how this works, and I would try a little bit on them and try to choke the kids, you know. But
yep, I think I was paying attention to what they were being taught.
Yeah,
and I think that's what was so humbling, is that I knew all that stuff.
Yeah,
from
right.
a spectator's perspective.
Yes,
and then when I tried it, like I can do an arm bar. No problem.
Yeah,
right?
I understand that.
No, you can't.
Yeah, right.
No, you cannot. You cannot do an arm bar in somebody who doesn't want to be arm barred.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And so at that point, I'm like, I know nothing, and my kids know way more than I do. And they're telling me, Dad, we don't want to go today. I'm like, well, you have to go at least 3 times a week.
Yeah.
You have to. We're paying for this. You have to go. And then they said, well, why aren't you doing it?
Oh,
and,
dang.
Ooh, I just, pulled a knife out from my back there because that hurt, you know? And it was true. Why am I telling them they have to do this when I'm not doing it myself? Why am I telling them that they have to do this certain move in a certain way when I don't even know what I'm talking about?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so that's, I think, what changed it for me.
So what, once you started, like, obviously you notice that it's a lot more difficult than it looks. Mm-hmm. Because even before I started doing jiu-jitsu, I would watch a lot of jiu-jitsu. I mean, I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast. Mm-hmm. You always hear him talking about it. And then just knowing about the history of the UFC and everything. And it's like, okay, I look up some videos. You know what a triangle is. Everybody knows what a triangle and armbar. Mm-hmm. But then you start like getting down some rabbit holes and you're like, holy crap, like there's some really cool stuff that goes on. But I still haven't done any of it. Yeah.
And in fact, all the stuff that you see, and I'm so happy to see how popular UFC is now and how popular jiu-jitsu is getting. I love that. I love that more people are exposed to that now than were before.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that when we're looking at that, and we're enjoying that, all that work and hard work that those fighters put in, you don't see any of that. They make it look easy because they put in the time and the work to make it look easy. Yeah. Right? They know what to do. They know how to move their body. Anybody who hasn't tried it before, you have no clue. You do not know how to move your body. I guarantee you don't know how to move your hips. You think you can move your hips. You don't know how to move your hips.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yep. I watched the kids shrimp for 2 years. Like that's like the number one, day one, most basic move in jiu-jitsu. And it's like, okay, I see what they're doing. They're just kind of getting their butt out of the way or whatever. Yeah. And then you first start doing it and you're just like sliding down the mat, like you're doing it all wrong.
And you practice with them at home.
Yeah.
I'll do a shrimp with you. Right. Yeah. But it's not the same as when you are doing it for yourself and you're having somebody critique how you're doing it and correct you in your position. It's not the same. Right. It's completely different.
Yeah. Dang.
Yeah. And the thing about learning is, I always had a little advantage with things because I pick up things very quickly.
Okay.
I'm able to kind of grasp things very quickly and I master things fairly quickly. This jiu-jitsu is not one of those things that you pick up quickly or you master quickly. There are some people who can do it. And I don't know why. But as for an average person like me, you cannot pick this stuff up very quickly. You cannot be that guy that you see on TV in just a couple of years. You can't do that.
Even if you're an athletic person. Like there's athletic people that pick up, he played basketball and now he's playing football. And it's like, well, it's still not the same. The way you move your body. I think there's been maybe it's just that Joe Rogan bias or whatever, or listening so much, but like he was saying the breakdancers, like the way they move there are some movements that are very similar to what we do, and they can pick it up a little bit quicker sometimes.
I agree with that.
That and wrestling.
Yes, in wrestling, wrestling is very close to jiu-jitsu also. You know, it's a little different than that. You're wearing a gi, you know, and you're going to choke people with your gi. But yeah, it's very similar. Breakdancing too, you know, like a back step. Yeah, like, nobody knows how to do a back step, but as a breakdancer, you're doing that all the time.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about the back step like that. Yeah, that's just a breakdance move,
right? Yeah. But at the same time, athleticism is not the key,
right,
to jiu-jitsu. I mean, you've seen it. We have people come into the gym that are athletes, thin, lean, strong, muscular, and you can just wipe them out, right? Yeah. They don't know anything. It doesn't take anything just
it's so
to
awkward.
Submit them, right? And so a little bit of that of jiu-jitsu is athleticism. A lot of it is up here.
Right. A lot of technique and setting them up and all that.
It is a mental game. And you probably hear people talking about it all the time and say jiu-jitsu is like mental chess.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it is. And it really is, because things change so quickly. Your game has to change because that other person changes so quickly. Their game changes so quickly, and you have to adjust to it.
Yeah, so that's what's cool. Like training with different training partners. Like over time, you get to know some of their moves, and they get to know your moves. But then you have to like figure out something else because they know what you're doing.
They're right.
So you gotta get another move in your toolbox. You know.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like I know, like with you, if I get you into my guard, you're going to break my grips. Like you break my grips every single time. So I'm not going to get your grips now. I'm going to figure out another way.
Something else,
because I know you're going to break my grips. So I have your game figured out. You have my game figured out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so, so the next step in that is the progression to where now you change it a little bit, right?
You make them think you're going to do this so you can do something else.
Right. Or now you get to the point to where now you're thinking about setting up, right? That's kind of the next step. So when you talk about the transition from a white belt to a blue belt, you have those fundamentals, right? Yeah. The fundamentals things, you know how to move your body a little bit, the fundamental moves. But that transition from blue belt to purple belt is when you start thinking about, okay, I already know how to do this move without really thinking about it. Now let's talk about the setup, like setting my opponent up so I can do that basic move. Yeah. That's kind of that next step in that.
So when we first started, I think you were already like a 4-stripe, at least I think you were a 4-stripe white belt when we first met.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. At that point, I mean, this was like at the end of 2018.
Yes.
When did you start training?
I started training, I think it was the end of 2016, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
Now, when you were going
early 17, maybe.
Okay. So, yeah, maybe like 2 years, year and a half before I started. So when you were first starting, going from white belt, well, how do you remember like what your first year of jiu-jitsu, like what that experience was like?
Yeah, I do, because that was a transition where I started in San Diego, and then we moved to Arizona.
How long were you out there?
I was only there for probably 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and the rest of my training I did here.
Okay, gotcha.
So, here we train at Carlos Farias, and at Carlos, at the first place, it was a really small gym.
Yeah.
And but they had some really good people there. There were really good wrestlers there, good jiu-jitsu practitioners there, and so I felt like I was getting very good training, very good training partners. They were pushing me, and I got injured at white belt. I tore my meniscus, and so I had to go have surgery. Excuse me. And at that point, I said, this is where I realized like how much I needed jiu-jitsu. So, and what I mean by that is because I was out from my injury, I was very grumpy. My wife said, you're a real asshole.
You got to get your ass back to jiu-jitsu.
You're grumpy now. You're an asshole, and it was because I wasn't training.
Yeah.
And even to this day, when I take a few days off from training, she'll say, you haven't been training lately, have you? And I said, yep, I haven't been training. And she goes, I can tell.
Wow.
You're a dick right now. So
that's like your meditation.
It is. And so that when I was injured was the point that I said, wow, I really need this. Like I really need this in my life.
Okay. Yeah. You know, I mean, I think I was going to ask this a little bit later on, but, you know, knowing that this is something that you need, right? I mean, it kind of keeps you balanced in life, but everybody's got moments where you just don't want to go, where you just don't feel like getting your ass beat that day. You know what I mean?
I would say every week, you know, I go every week.
Right.
I would say that, yeah, every week I say I don't want to go.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's all these things else, all these other things that are going on in your life. You have work, you have family, you know, whatever else that you have going on. You know, jiu-jitsu is one of those things that you have to plug in and make time for every single week. And there's going to be times that you don't want to go.
Yeah.
And there's time, I mean, like even this week, I'll probably say, oh,
I don't feel like going
I don't feel like going. But you know what? You go.
Yeah.
And when you're there, that's when you go, I'm glad I came.
Right.
Or afterwards, I'm really glad that I did not take this day off.
It sounds corny or cliche or whatever, but it is like, whenever I felt like not going, it's like, oh, I'm not going to do it. But you know, I have like this thing is like, if I put my pants on, if I have my gi on, there's no way I could complain all the way out the door, but I'm going to go to the gym.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you will. You don't say, man, God, I don't have
freaking
time.
Driving. You're like, I don't really feel it.
Right.
But once you get there, and then like you said, afterward, it's always like, man. And then there's times when you have one of these training sessions that's like, wow, like I am so glad I came, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have had the day that I had today.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. And you don't know what day you're going to have.
Yeah.
They always say some days you're the hammer and some days you're the nail, right?
Yeah,
mean, and a lot of the days I'm the nail. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not that good. I started later in life. You know, I'm older. Yeah, we fight against younger people all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, even those days where I just get my ass kicked, I still love it.
Yeah.
Like I'll come home and my wife will say, hey, you know, did you get your ass kicked today? Yep, I did. Got my ass kicked, but it's good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. That's one thing that's really cool with jiu-jitsu is like the progression. I mean, I guess if you see it the right way, because a lot of times there's some people that it's like, the only way that it's fun or you feel like you're getting any better is if you're submitting people.
Yes.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
But man, there's like so many wins in between that if you focus on those things instead, like it makes it so much easier. So like if you just hang in there a little bit longer against somebody that would just destroy you all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where you can't focus on the win.
Yeah.
Right. You just can't do that. You can't focus on, you know, your stripes or your belt or whatever it is, because if you do, you're going to lose sight of what it really means.
Yeah.
What it really means to progress is those moves, you know, adding those tools to your toolbox. That's the progression. And you don't see it in a short period of time. That's what I'm saying. It takes so long to learn the craft. It's one of those things you don't get instant gratification.
Do you remember how long it took you to get your first submission?
It was a long time.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah. I think, you know, there's upper belts who would let me submit them.
Yeah.
And just like we do too. You know, if there's somebody new, you know, you're not going to just destroy them. You know, you're going to let them
maybe let them get you in a position.
You're going to let them work a little bit, you know, and, you know, sometimes, okay, you got me, you know, get me in an arm bar. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. We're starting.
You know? But, yeah, like a real submission, it didn't come till later on.
It was like months.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much. And it was probably on another white belt too, you know, like, you know, for us to submit an upper belt, you know, it takes a little bit more. I mean, you know, we've done it, and sometimes you surprise yourself. Oh shit, I caught him, and you know, whatever it was. It's like, did that really happen? Yeah, that really happened. But
then again, you're also like, did that really happen? It's like,
yes.
You know, you're like, I don't know if it really did or not.
Yeah, and that's where you see your game change. Also, you know, there's a lot of different submissions in jiu-jitsu. Some of them you're gonna gravitate towards, and other ones you're not going. You're gonna say, that's just not me. That's not in my game, right? But I can tell you that as I've progressed, I've started to learn things or look at things in a little different way, and it goes back to what we were talking about before, you and your opponents and what they do, and how you have to change your game or adapt to what they're doing. Right. If you limit yourself to kind of one path, you're going to get stuck. right? Because your opponent's going to have multiple paths. They're going to change up their game. And if you don't have the tools to change, then you're going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck every single time. Gotcha. So you have to have an open mind about learning new things also. You have to be able to say, okay, I'm mediocre, average at this. I'm going to become mediocre and average at this one now. Yeah. And so, now you're mediocre and average in a few different things. You haven't mastered it just yet, but at least you can change your game as your opponent
switch
changes.
To something else. Yeah.
Right.
At least know what to do when they do something different.
Yeah. Right. And don't have the expectation that you're going to be a master at that, because you're just not.
That is one of the things with jiu-jitsu, is that you just have to get good at losing all the time.
I don't know where I heard this, but somebody said jiu-jitsu is the sport for people who are okay with losing.
Yeah, you have to be.
You have to be okay to lose, and that's how you get better is by losing.
I mean, even like there's some drills that we'll do where we kind of sit in the middle, and maybe you win the first couple rounds, but you end up getting tired.
Yep.
And then you start getting smashed by other people, by lower belts, by everybody.
Right.
But So when you were going from white belt to blue belt, was there any type of plan, or was it just like, I'm going to keep showing up and I'm going to keep trying to get better? Was there any kind of like a structure, like, okay, I want to get good at this, I want to get good at this, or I'm not good at this, I'm going to put myself in this position and get better at this so that I can progress to blue belt? Was there any thoughts like that?
Yeah, I think all of us kind of think a little bit like, I'm hunting for the stripes, or I'm hunting for the belt, right? Like there's a little bit in everybody's mind, like, I really wish I would get that stripe.
Yeah.
But and everybody will tell you, forget about all that stuff.
Yeah.
Forget about your stripe, forget about your belts. Just show up and put in the work, right? And we've heard this before. What's the difference between a white belt and a black belt? The black belt kept showing up. Right. They just showed up. Right. That's what you have to do to progress. To just show up.
Yeah.
Put in the work of showing up, and you will progress. You'll get there, even if you're not thinking about my next steps. Those next steps will come.
Yeah.
And so for me, my plan really wasn't. My plan really wasn't anything, because I started seeing the benefits of jiu-jitsu in other ways. I became, more, I had more energy, I had more mental clarity. I started losing weight. The pounds started coming off, and so I saw all these things that were benefits of doing it. So I just said, well, I'm just going to keep doing that.
Yeah.
What really changed for me was competing.
Really?
My first competition, when I did my first competition, and I have a story about this, but my first competition was when I really started taking it seriously. Okay. I said, okay, I'm going to buckle down. Like, I'm really going to start concentrating on learning. And that was towards the end of my white belt. I was probably 2 or 3 stripe white belt at the time before I did my first competition.
Yeah. I think when we had met, you had already competed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was at that point I said, okay, now I really got to start working hard.
Yeah, there is something that changes when you sign up for a competition. At least, especially your first one. When you sign up for that first one, it's like, okay, now I'm doing something. I have a date that I'm gonna fight somebody. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you start like, okay, when somebody's in my guard, I want to know that I can do this, or this. And then when they're in this position, I want to know that I can do this, or this. So it starts getting a little bit more, like, I guess, more structured or more disciplined.
Right. So up until that point, no, it was just, hey, I'm having fun. Your thing. Yeah. I'm getting my ass kicked every day. Hey, that, this is good.
Yeah.
And then the tournament, that's when you say, okay, this is why we work so hard. This is why you pay attention to this. This is why you perfect, this particular move.
Yeah.
This is why you pay attention to the details, is because it matters in the tournaments.
Right.
And so my first tournament, I had a guy who, it was 2 of us. It's harder when you get my age to get opponents. They're just not many old guys like me doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And so I had one guy in my bracket. It was just the 2 of us. And he didn't make weight, so he got DQ'd.
Oh, man.
So I'm sitting there. I have no opponent. And I'm like, what the hell? This is my first fucking tournament. And I prepared for this. You know, I made
That's horrible.
weight.
Yeah.
You know, I've been training my ass off for this.
Yeah.
And I don't have an opponent. So I talked to the organizer. I said, hey, I know this guy, guy was DQ'd, but can I just fight him? But can you just bring him back here? I know he did make weight, but bring him back.
Yeah.
So they actually found him, called him back again, and he kicked my ass.
What the shit? You're like, nah, it doesn't count. It doesn't count.
So yeah, so my first tournament I lost to a guy who got DQ'd, you know, and he took the gold.
No way, dude.
Because I called him back again. I said, hey, I want to fight. You know, I've been preparing for this. But, you know, it was at that point I said, wow, this is different than training with your friends.
Yeah.
You know? You know, in a tournament, you know, obviously, you know, when we're training with each other, you know, I don't want to hurt you. You don't want to hurt me as an opponent. And in a tournament, you don't want to hurt your opponent either.
Right.
But you're not pulling the stops.
Right. You're not friends. You're trying to win.
You're trying to win. And that means you're going as hard and as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And if you get hurt, sorry, but I'm trying to submit you as fast as I can or as hard as I can.
Right.
And so
hopefully you tap.
And hopefully you tap fast enough, right?
Right.
And so that's the difference in a tournament. I think that if you look at it from that perspective, you know, why are we training? For me, it's training because I want to get better at that tournament. It's like I really want to compete. I really want my game to advance. You know, there's people out there that don't compete ever, and that's fine too. You know, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You know, they have a different reason for why they want to get better, you know, at jiu-jitsu. But for me, it really was the tournaments. That's what changed things for me.
So speaking of like the training and the tournaments, you've also got the chance to train at different places around the world.
Yes.
Right. And you've also competed in Europe and around the world too. How is that experience? Like going from, you know, you had the one experience in California, then you came to our gym, Carlos Farias here in Arizona, and then you started training in other places. What was that experience like? You
know, this is the great thing, and this is what I really, really love about jiu-jitsu. It's the same language no matter where you go.
Yeah.
It's the language, I mean, is the language of jiu-jitsu. It is exactly the same. Yeah. Whether it's in Europe, and I've trained in Europe, Canada, you know, Mexico.
Really?
I've trained in a lot of places. And, you know, even when I was in Germany, you know, there was one guy who spoke English there.
So everything's they're teaching everything in German.
Everything in German, and there was one guy that spoke English, and it didn't matter.
Like, you could just watch.
You would just watch, and you could just do the moves. You just follow them. You already know all the basics. Stuff. Yeah, you know this stuff already, and so that's what's really cool about the sport is that the language of jiu-jitsu is exactly the same no matter where you go. Doesn't matter if they're speaking English or not. Everything is the same.
Dude, that's cool. I can't wait to have that experience because I get to train with my work traveling around the country. Like I've been to a handful of gyms around the country, and that's one thing with jiu-jitsu that I found is just the people. I mean, of course, like everywhere there, I'm sure there's gyms that, you know, have some stuff that they can work on, but a lot of the places, maybe looking up the reviews, and I've done a pretty good job at picking the gyms, and everywhere I've went, they've been super welcoming. Everybody's super nice.
Yeah,
and
it's amazing.
Like you said, it's like we already know the basics. So when you show up there, and as long as you're not being a dick and trying to hurt anybody, you know, you're gonna have a great time.
Yeah, I can tell you that the places that I visited, you know, I trained at a place in Switzerland.
Yeah,
and they were such an amazing group of guys. Like I felt like I knew them forever.
Yeah,
you know, just like welcoming in. Let's come train with us.
Yeah.
Are you going to be here tomorrow? Come back again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It was one of those things where for us being in the jiu-jitsu community, it's very, very special. And it's because, again, we speak that same language when it comes to jiu-jitsu, but it's like a big family.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about jiu-jitsu to somebody in another country and you could have conversations for hours about it, right? I mean, because it's the same. You know, and I don't think all gyms are like that. You know, I think there are some out there that people will say, hey, you don't really want to go there or not. But I've never experienced that. The gyms that I've been to have been very welcoming, you know, great people who just love the sport just like we do.
Yeah, I've had when I travel to Connecticut, like there's a gym. I go there often. So there's a gym that I go to there all the time. And I was telling my wife, about some of the guys there. And she's like, that is so cool. Like you get to go over there and it's like you have friends in another, I'm like, I mean, I've already been there like 4 or 5 times. And then in California, when I go train, there's a gym that I was there so often that I paid a membership for a month. I was like, just charge me your monthly fee. And then whenever I show up, I'll, do my thing. Yeah.
Same thing for me. I travel to San Diego quite a bit, and I go to Legion out there, and, I bought, a package of membership. And so I can just, use those. I could show up there and train with them.
Legion, that's Keenan Cornelius.
Yes.
Is that his gym?
That's his
that
gym.
One?
Yes.
No shit.
Yeah.
Dude, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a great gym.
Yeah.
Huge mat area. I mean, you fit hundreds of people.
I was sitting there watching their videos all the time.
Yeah. No, it's a great gym. And like I said, all the ones that I've been to are really, really good gyms. Very, very, very different in the way that they teach also, which is good to get to experience that, because, like our coach, he's a big guy, he's 280 pounds, just big guy, 6'4", whatever he is. Right. For him, his game is pressure.
Get on top.
Right.
Yep.
He's a pressure guy. You don't mess with that guy's pressure.
Right.
He'll
don't end up underneath.
He'll submit you just with his pressure. Right. And, you go to another gym and their game is completely different. They have a bottom game, right?
Yeah.
And so you get to see all these different ways that they teach, and that really helps you put things into perspective also. Like, what do I need to work on? Well, I've been working on this here in this gym.
Yeah.
I don't work on that in this gym, but now I can start bringing that into the gym that I normally attend. For me, I learned some squid and Legion. They do squid and spider too. They're really good at that. And so, I started doing spider a lot more.
Yeah.
I have problems with my back, so there's a lot of things that I can't do. But in spider, I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And so now, and you've probably seen, like for me, like I'm doing a lot of spider now.
Yeah.
And so we don't learn that with Carlos. He doesn't teach that piece of it, but as you get to go around to these other gyms, you start picking up a little bit more and more, which that's what I really like about the community also.
Yeah, that is an experience that I noticed, something that I wanted to share. But before I do that, make sure you guys go to my website, fightingforyourlifepodcast.com. That'll take you to the YouTube link. But what you can do, the best thing that you can do is find us on YouTube, find us on Facebook, Fighting for Your Life Podcast, and comment, subscribe. Leave a like, share it with somebody that you know, and that'll definitely help out the show. Another thing that you can do is help out the other podcast and support and subscribe to that one. That's Opposites Attract Podcast. You can go to oppositesattractpodcast.com, and you can find ways that you can support the show there and follow us for that podcast too.
I just want to say one thing about the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thanks, man.
I'm proud of you because, this is not easy. Yeah. Doing a podcast is not easy. And you have just been grinding.
I'm like a robot.
and doing it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be consistent at it. Yeah. So I'm proud of you for doing that. That's awesome.
I appreciate it.
And I even from the very beginning, when you did the first couple and I listened to them, I said, man, he's going to do this. He's going to do it no matter if he gets 1 view or 100 views. It's coming out every week. Coming out.
Yep.
It's going to do it.
Doesn't matter if it's Christmas, New Year's, it's coming out. Yep.
Yeah. So good job on that.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And you've been supporting us since the very beginning. That's what I've been saying. When I first mentioned the other podcast that we've been doing for almost 4 years now, you were one of the first people that I told about it.
Yeah.
And right from the beginning, when I told you, you're like, well, what can I do to help? And you've been supporting us ever since. So
yeah, I listened to it and I said, man, this sounds really nice. It's a good podcast.
Yeah. And then little by little, we, figure it out and upgrade it. So yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you, man. So yeah, one of the experiences that I've had is like when we train at our gym, like we were talking about earlier, like, a lot of my game. I know a lot of other people's games, your game. So when we roll with each other, when we're sparring, we have a hard time a lot of times with our training partners. But when you go to a different school, like you said, the game is different and they have no idea what you're good at.
No.
And then the things that you're good at that don't work back home seem to work so much easier when you go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, wow, like I don't suck as bad as I thought I did. And you start putting it on people.
It's the same problem that they have with their gym that we have with ours, right? their instructor teaches in a way that works for them.
Right.
You know, that's their game.
That's what
they're
good
learning
at.
their instructor's game, right?
Right.
You know, we're learning our instructor's game. When we go to some place else, now we're learning that instructor's game. So it's a little bit different, and they probably never seen the pressure passes that we do. You know,
right.
They don't do that.
Yeah.
And so, so sometimes we're a little bit more effective at what we do in our game because we do it so much.
Yeah. And then also when you learn something over there and you bring it back home, that seems to work pretty good too.
It seems to work really well.
You know?
Yeah.
And one of my favorite experiences has been like just showing them something. Like something easy that we do here that maybe a lot of people don't do. It's like, okay, well, before, you know, we stop rolling, let me show you something real quick. And then they're like, oh, and then, you know, next time we go back, you know, they're like, oh yeah, I used that on somebody else.
Right.
And, you know, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And we do that for each other too. You know, when it comes to, you know, preparing for tournaments or, you know, trying to help, you know, somebody who's learning, we say, okay, hey, why don't you try it this way? You know, do this a little bit differently than the way you're doing it now. And then that becomes effective for them. And, you know, one of the good things about it, like when we share information like that, is that we never try to hold any of that information back.
Right.
Like we're always trying to share. It does, if you're getting better, then I'm getting better. Right. So there's no secrets.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing about, you know, keeping a secret when it comes to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And there might be between, you know, gyms, especially when they're competing against each other. But even when you visit a gym, it's not like they're holding back things either. You know,
right.
They're showing you exactly what they do.
Yeah. I mean, they want to show you what their good stuff, you know, so you can see that it works.
Right.
I have a problem with that, with keeping secrets. Like I'll get a brand new guy and they'll be doing something where they almost pass or whatever. And as soon as we're done, I'm like, this is what you could have did. And I'm like, shit. Next time they're going to be doing what I told them, and
but you want that.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
You want that. You want them to do that to where now you can't figure that out, right?
Right. Yeah.
You want them to get better because you get better. You know, iron sharpens iron, right? So
right.
You know, that's in our gym. It says that, and it's very true.
Right.
That's why I want you to get better. That's why I want my opponents to get better, because when you get better, then I get better.
Right.
You know, I want you to figure out all my moves. I want you to be able to stop me whenever I'm doing things, because now I got to learn something new.
Right. Yep. That's awesome. So with all I mean, you've had different businesses and all kinds of stuff going on, and we were just kind of talking about the wellness and recovery business that you're starting. Has jiu-jitsu ever? I'm sure it's kind of like crossed into your mind, like starting some type of business. Maybe this is kind of like related to it, but have you had thoughts of that at all?
This business that I'm starting now is directly because of jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Like there's no way.
This is the one that came from jiu-jitsu.
It is. Yeah. There's no way that I would have ever started this business without jiu-jitsu.
Would you start a school?
No.
Is that something? No. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't have. I mean, I would have never have done that. And so, you know, one of those things that we talk about, our progression in jiu-jitsu, you know, for me, you know, in tournaments, is one of the things that I realize is you really have to take care of your body. You have to train, you have to, you know, do strength conditioning. You know, as you get older, you don't recover as fast. And so you have to do things that help with the recovery.
Right.
And so I was doing cold plunges. I was doing the hot tubs at my gym and they had steam room and saunas there too. And I felt so much better. Right. I'm like, man, it's really helping me. You know, we train very hard. You're putting out a lot of effort.
Yeah. You're getting banged up.
You're putting your body through a lot.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't we be doing this exact same thing that athletes are doing? Pro athletes are, you know, football players, basketball players,
right,
baseball players. They're all doing that same type of recovery. Well, for us, you know, we need that avenue to recover also.
Yeah.
And how cool would it be to have one that's right there in a gym?
Dude, that's an awesome idea. I mean, so you're opening up the spot right next to one of our friends who's also he's a black belt from Carlos Farias. Yes. He opened up his own school.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things that I've seen in jiu-jitsu too has been like one of the last tournaments that I went to, and seeing all the different schools that have come out of our coach's school.
Oh yeah.
You know,
affiliate gyms.
Yeah. And it's not like I mean, not that there's anything wrong with it, but there's a lot of other schools where it's like franchises. Like you start here and then you can open up your own franchise and start your own business and all that. But this isn't even like that. It's just they got a black belt from our coach and they wanted to open up a gym.
Right.
Our coach knows how to do it. So he helps them like, hey, this is how I did it. If you want to do it or you do it however. And then going to the tournaments and just seeing all the affiliated gyms. I mean, there's so many now.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty awesome to see what's been built or what coaches built.
Very cool. I mean, you take a look at just the patch, right?
Yeah.
The Carlos Frias patch. When you see that patch there, you probably don't even know who that guy is.
Right.
I've never seen that guy before.
Yeah.
But he's wearing our patch.
Right.
And it's because he's from one of our affiliate gyms. You know?
Yeah.
And when it like, the business that I'm opening it's right next to Rick Centron's place. Yep. He always had a dream of opening up his own gym.
Yeah, it's in Chandler, Arizona.
It's in Chandler, right off of Alma School and Germain.
Okay.
And that was his dream.
Yeah.
And so when he got his black belt, he said, okay, that's what I want to do. And he opened up a really small school.
Yep.
I want to say maybe like 1,200, 1,400 square feet. It wasn't that big.
Yeah.
And, a year and a half later now, he moved into a bigger spot now, 2,500 square feet. Beautiful gym.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been there before.
I haven't been there yet.
Oh, you got to go.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful. Check him out. Rick Centron, BJJ. Look at his new gym. Go on Instagram. You'll see it in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely
No, it's
amazing.
looking awesome.
Absolutely amazing. So now that he has that, moved into the new place, there was a Cricket Wireless store that was vacant next to it. So he moved in there, and I said, man, I really would like to have a recovery place for the athletes that are doing jiu-jitsu, to have a place to recover. And I thought about putting into his old place, his little 1,200 square foot place. He said, why do that? There's a spot right next door to me.
That's perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And so I kicked it around a little bit, and I said, you know what? We have to do it. It wasn't a choice at that point. I said, there's no other place like that.
Yeah.
There's no other place that has a jiu-jitsu gym with a recovery piece of it that is
attached
right attached to it. Yeah. And I said, okay, it's decided. We have to do it. And so we're doing it. And
Dude,
it's a lot of work.
Oh man.
But we're doing it. And it's going to be beautiful. I think it's going to be an amazing place. I think that not just our members, of our affiliate gyms, Carlos's gyms, will go there, but I think that other people will go there too. Other people that train at other gyms, I think will go there.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I was thinking like you guys can work something with his students and it can be part of the thing, or however. You guys got all kinds of opportunities. With that.
Yeah, it's amazing, and we're putting in showers there. So one of those things we always said was I want to go train in the morning.
Yeah,
but I don't want to go to work all sweaty and stuff. Now you go train in the morning, you go take a shower,
get ready,
go to work.
Nice, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Rick Centron. He's actually he'll also eventually be on the podcast. He was also one of the first training partners, one of the first coaches that I had there at Carlos Frias, and he was coaching the kids when I first started there, and I would help coach with him with the kids, and that is one of those things, kind of like competing. When you're helping teach the kids, it also helps you like realize that, okay, I got to pay attention to all the details of these moves, because that, like, you notice that that's what's important. It's not like the gross, like, motor movements. It's like, okay, you can, like, anybody can do those things, but it's like the little tiny things that you miss that keep these moves from working.
Teaching is the best way to learn.
Yeah,
it really is. And especially when it comes to teaching kids, because, they knew just as much as you did.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're trying to pass that knowledge on. And so you're saying, okay, this is how you're supposed to do that. And then when you think about you doing that same thing, now you're saying, okay, if I'm teaching this, I have to make sure that I'm doing it perfect.
Yeah.
Like, I have to make sure that I'm doing it the right way. You want to go in there not knowing, like, I kind of know how to. No, you don't want to kind of know. You want to really know how to do it right.
Yeah. When I met my wife, Sonia, we met in this network marketing business. And I remember one of the lessons that they would teach is like, I mean, when you're like the different ways to learn, you know, and the first one is obviously just sitting down and learning it for yourself, you know, and you'll pick up some things that way. And the other thing is learning by teaching it to somebody else.
Right.
You're going to know it a little bit better by teaching it to somebody else. But when you teach somebody else how to teach it, like at that point, you already have this down so much that it's almost second nature, you know? So, but that's, that's something that with the kids and just kind of helping out and wanting to kind of, like you said, like wanting the best for the guys, like not keeping secrets and wanting to help other people. You have to like pay attention and want to be the best of yourself so that you can help other people. Because if not, it's not genuine.
No,
you know,
it's
you're
not,
just kind of bullshitting them.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Rick. You know, Rick was the first person to wrist lock me.
Yeah,
like I got my blue belt, and I think we did Shark Tank like that evening, and you know, they wrist locked me like I don't even know how many times.
Yep.
You know,
he's like, "You're ready.
You're ready. Yeah, this is it." And so, like now, you know, I know that piece of it. Like I know. Like we're talking about game, like I know Rick's game now. I know not to, you know, to leave my arm in a position to where he could lock my elbow and push my wrist down. You know,
yeah.
I know not to do that now.
That's funny.
And so, you know, for him teaching me the, you know, things about, you know, wrist locks has helped me pass that information on to other people now.
Yeah,
you know, so I'll get blue belts in there. I said, if your arm is in this position and I push your elbow here, I'm gonna lock your wrist down. You know? So. You know, it's just one of those things like, yeah, he as a teacher would teach me, and then me as a teacher will now teach somebody else. And hopefully one day they're going to teach somebody else.
Right. Kind of like you were saying, like our coach, like I don't think he's ever shown a wrist lock that I remember.
No.
It's just people will wrist lock you while you're rolling and you're like, how'd you do that? And then, you know,
Right.
And Rick was one of those. Yep. That would just, he would be
straight ankle locks.
Yeah.
Straight ankle locks. But we don't do those.
Yeah.
But you learn those in another place.
Right. No, somebody starts grabbing your legs and you're like, what are you doing? It's like, I don't even know what to do from here.
Right.
You know? So, yeah.
Yeah. For me, and we were talking about straight ankle locks, you know, I lost in a tournament that way.
To a straight ankle lock?
Straight. And I go, oh, man, I really have to learn these.
You're like, time out. I don't know.
I have to learn how to defend these. And I got to learn how to do that, too, because that was slick. You know?
Dude, I think with foot locks and all, and like all the leg entanglement stuff, because we didn't practice it too much, like my defense was always just like what I would hear on UFC, or like when I'd be watching matches, be like, get your feet in the middle or pummel back. Then I'm like, all right, just pull their head close and, you know, just do the best I can.
Yeah. But, So, I trained at this place in Canada. It's called Ground X Jiu-Jitsu. And it's actually 2 black belts that were Keenan's student.
Oh, okay.
And they moved to Canada and opened up their own gym up there. And we spent, you know, a couple days working on straight ankle locks.
Yeah.
And I came away knowing how to defend them. I never knew how to defend them before. So
nice.
You know, now you learn something from another place and you bring it back. And now I can start teaching people here about, you know, straight ankle locks and how to defend them. So it's one of those things where we want to have a well-rounded game. You don't just want to pigeonhole yourself. You kind of want to have a well-rounded game. That's why I said, I just want to be mediocre in a lot of things because I want to have like a broad spectrum of knowledge. Like I don't want to say like, you know, I'm going to be perfect at one thing, but if I'm average at a lot of things, then I think it's better for my game then.
Right. Yeah. So when we were first starting, you were saying that you started jiu-jitsu already as an adult, but your first introductions to martial arts were like the comic books and Bruce Lee and movies and all that sort of thing. Have you had any other experiences with martial arts besides jiu-jitsu or just
jiu-jitsu?
Jiu-jitsu. That's your one and only love.
That's the one and only.
That's it.
And I'm a UFC fan also. So, you know, I see now how striking is important. So if you look at it differently, if you look at it from, let's say like a true martial artist.
Yeah.
And if, you know, a lot of people say, well, I want to defend myself. You know, I want my kids to defend themselves. If they're in a fight, I want to defend myself. If somebody comes at me and get in a fight, like I want to be able to defend myself. Jiu-jitsu is not going to take care of that. Right. Jiu-jitsu is one component of
self-defense,
fighting and self-defense and martial arts. But in order for you to be like a well-rounded fighter and somebody who can actually defend themselves, you have to learn all those other ones too.
Right.
You have to learn the striking piece of it.
Right.
You know, you have to learn the ground game. You have to learn stand-up. You have to learn boxing. So it's not the thing that will keep you out of trouble. Jiu-Jitsu, it'll help.
Yeah.
Right. Because, a lot of times the fights do go to the ground, and when you're on the ground, nobody knows how to fight on the ground. Right. Unless you've had training. Right. Nobody does.
Yeah.
Right. And so, if it gets to the ground, you probably have a pretty good chance. Right. But if you're just standing there boxing with somebody, I'm going to get my ass kicked every time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So have you had any, after watching UFC and doing jiu-jitsu for a while, is there any interest to like pick up any of the other stuff and like kind of round off the rest of the game?
I do have an interest, but I'm old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I have shoulder problems. I have back problems. I have, as you get older, there's a lot more problems. So for me, the kicking and striking, I think, would be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to learn how to do that. I just think for me, I will get a black belt in jiu-jitsu one day. I'm just going to keep showing up. Like I said before, I'm going to keep learning. And that's really what I'm just focused on now. And because I don't really worry about the whole like defensive thing or, the martial arts thing. That's not why I'm doing it. Like for me, the jiu-jitsu piece of it is really what I want to concentrate on.
Right. The skills, the techniques, the community, all that other stuff.
Yeah. That's what's important to me. I know that if I get into a fight and it's a stand-up fight, I'm going to get my ass kicked. I accept that, like I'm not trying to train to where, listen, I'm almost 55. I'm not getting into a bar fight.
No more fights.
There's no more fights for me.
Yeah.
So I don't need to know that piece of it.
Yeah.
As a kid, I would say it's probably it's a good idea to know all that stuff. So, if you're putting your kids in jiu-jitsu, put them in Muay Thai also, put them in boxing, so that they can have a well-rounded instruction on defending themselves in a real world fight.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's, that's something that we talk to our kids about is like, hey, if you get into a fight, understand the fight is not jiu-jitsu.
No. And
that is something that, you kind of hear both sides of it. Some people feel like, oh, they do jiu-jitsu and they're like, like Bruce Lee. Like right. It's like, not so fast, because some of your jiu-jitsu might go out the window and somebody cracks you right in the nose.
Exactly.
So
yeah, if you're waiting to for them to take you down and then they just punch you in the face, that's wait a second, you're supposed to try to take me down, like no, if somebody is trying to hurt you, right, they're gonna figure out a way to hurt you. And then most people that get into fights haven't had any formal training. Yeah. Whether even when it comes to striking, they haven't had formal training.
Yeah.
So most of the time you're just dealing with
amateurs,
and so in that aspect, okay, it might be fair.
Yeah.
If they've had any training though, yeah, that's when you're really gonna get into problems. They have a little bit more knowledge, they have the skill, and if you don't, they're gonna win.
Yeah. And hopefully, a lot of times you find like people that train aren't like out looking or getting into fights. A lot of times it's people that don't know anything, that don't realize the consequences of fighting because they don't do it. And talking about the, you said ultimately your goal is to get, or one of the goals is to get a black belt, and over the last few months I've had, like this podcast was always a thought. Like, it's like, I have the podcast with my wife, but I'd like to, I'm into fighting. It'd be cool to talk to people about fighting. So this was, eventually became a thought, and I was like, I think I'm going to do that one day. And then I was kind of like lollygagging with jiu-jitsu for a little bit. Like I never stopped showing up, but there would be times where there would be a little bit longer breaks and be like, I'd go like once for that month.
Right.
And it's like, I know that's not good.
Right.
So, and then you start packing on a couple pounds, and the discipline starts falling off. And, over the last, 6 months or whatever, I was like, I know what's happening. I was like, and I know I need to just start doing some things to kind of change my course. And one of the decisions was I want to get a black belt. So actually for my birthday, I ordered a black belt, and I keep it in my gym bag so that whenever I grab my belt, there's a black belt in there so that I can see it. And whenever I don't feel like training, or that it's happened where I have those moments where I leave the house and I'm like, shit, I don't feel like going. I don't want to do this. I don't want to get beat up. And then I get to the gym and I'm putting my gi on and I open up my bag And I'm like, oh shit, there's that black belt, you know? So
just staring at you.
So I put the blue belt on and get out there and, you know, do what I got to do.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, like having a well-rounded game, one of my thoughts was also like, maybe I'll work on my jiu-jitsu for a while. I was kind of thinking maybe work till I get to the point to purple belt, and then maybe the kids and I will start doing a little bit of kickboxing, and then we'll kind of mix it up in between. But kind of like you're saying, I'm also not as young as I used to be. And as far as like time goes, I don't know if like taking the time away from jiu-jitsu to go train kickboxing is going to be like, I'm going to be like 70 before I get my black belt. You know what I mean? So
you know, going back to the question, you know, would I do other martial arts? I would. I totally would. If I had just all the time in the world, I probably would do that.
Yeah.
You know, I probably would take kickboxing, Muay Thai, boxing. You know, I'd probably do all that stuff. The striking. You know, work more on, like no gi stuff. You know, I do more work in the gi. I probably would work more in no gi. You know, just as you get older, it's just about time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not that I don't like that stuff, because I do, and I think that I would. I think that I would do well in it. Just like, you know, with jiu-jitsu, if you put the time in,
right,
you're going to get better. But I think that's, for me, it's just time, you know, the time constraint. So for me, I have enough time to do jiu-jitsu, and that's what I focus on.
Speaking of putting in the time and getting better, that is something that we learn in jiu-jitsu. Like that is one of the biggest lessons, that you show up and you don't know anything, and everything is awkward. Nothing is working. And then you put in the time and things start working little by little. Has that rubbed off on anything else that you do? Maybe on the businesses, or?
It's taught me a lot of patience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you go into jiu-jitsu thinking, I'm going to put in a couple of years and I'm going to be great. It, right. If you put in with anything else, let's just say this. If you were to do something consistently every week for 2 years, like, you are going to be pretty darn good at whatever that is.
Yeah.
It doesn't apply to jiu-jitsu.
Right.
You know, you have some of those people that get their black belt in 6 years or so. That's a rarity.
Right.
Right. That is not the norm.
Right.
You know, you're looking at 10, 12 plus years before you're getting a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And the reason is, it's because it's so difficult.
Right.
It is so hard. Even though it looks easy, it's not. And so for us, we say, okay, you know, it's hard. I've realized how hard this is. And you have to become humble, and you have to have patience. And I think that's what it's taught me, is just to have patience. You want things to happen quickly. Jiu-jitsu doesn't happen quickly. The other things in life, you want it to happen quickly. It doesn't have to happen quickly. Slow down, you know, take your time, do it right, learn the details.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're perfecting it, you know.
And show up more than once a month.
And show up more than once a month. Yeah.
And you'll get better. That's right. You know. Yeah, that's one of the things that I've learned also, is like the consistency.
Yeah.
Is like, man, when you fall out, COVID was a really good teacher of that.
Yes.
It's like how far you can regress in a short period of time if you're not like actively working on your stuff.
Right. And you know, we had mats out in our backyard.
Yeah.
You know, me and the kids would roll around. I didn't have anybody else to roll with, so I was rolling with kids.
Yeah.
But even that, you know, you still lost a lot. We still lost a lot during that time. And, you know, it's like a bike though. And then, you know, for anybody that's out there that says, man, I haven't been there in a month. I really don't want to show back up there, show my face. And then people ask him, hey, where have you been? Forget all that. Just go.
Yeah.
Don't worry about how it looks to other people that you haven't been there in a while. Get your ass back there again.
Yeah. That is something that I have struggled with in the past, but it's like you're never going to get past that growing, because when you take a break for a while, you have to go through some of the same growing pains again. Kind of like we were talking about in the beginning, like you forget how to breathe.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy crap, I need to stop holding my breath.
Yeah.
And then you're winded in the first minute and a half, and you still got another 4.5 minutes to go.
But you know why now.
Yeah.
Like now you've already been through all that, right? Now you know, okay, here's where I am. Here's where I was. Now you already know those steps on how to get back there again. Whereas before you didn't know. You didn't know those steps. You didn't know where that path was.
Yeah, it's just a shock.
It's just a shock to you. Like
you're tired and you're getting smashed all the time.
Right, yeah. But again, just go. Like get back into it again.
Yeah.
And there's people that have taken years off and come back again.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I don't know who was at our gym that who was a black belt. He took off a long time and then came back again and eventually got his black belt. So it's like one of those, it's just like anything else. You have to be dedicated, want something out of it. For us, it's our black belt. That's what we want. We want to get our black belt. And I've heard several people say before, oh, I want to get my black belt. And that's really all I want to do. And that's bullshit too, because they get their black belt and then they continue.
Right.
Then they're continuing to learn as they get their black belt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the black belt's that's a weird one because that's always like the goal. But then when you talk to black belts, it's like, that's like the beginning.
It's the beginning.
Yeah. It's funny in the business that I met my wife in. There was a similar thing. There was people that would tell you like when you reach these, it was like a performance based thing. And when you reach these positions, like people are like, you're a big shot or whatever. Like you're at the top of the company. And the guys that were there, they were like, this is the starting line. Right. When you guys get here, this is where the business like you actually have a business and now we got to go.
Yes.
And people are like, holy crap. And a lot of times you feel you get to that point and now it's time to chill and take a break. Well, maybe for a second, but then you got to get back on it.
I can tell you that just from the black belts that I've talked to, there's no taking time to chill.
Yeah.
It's the same. You're still learning. You're still putting in the work. You're probably teaching more.
Yeah.
Now, but that's what's great about the sport.
Yeah.
That there is no end game.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything flows into the next thing.
Yes, it does.
So, real quick before we get out of here, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the spot that you're opening up with Rick. When is that opening up, man? What are you guys gonna have?
Yeah,
everything that you're gonna have there.
Yeah, so our grand opening is December 16th. That's what we're shooting for.
Okay. And the name of the business?
As long as everything goes correct, we're putting in a lot of work to get it ready.
Yeah.
A lot of work to get it ready. And so we're shooting for the 16th. It's Rejuvgen.
Rejuvgen.
Yeah, and for us, it's about recovery, rejuvenation. That's kind of where the name came from.
Right.
Rejuvenation for generations to come. That's where we want it to be. We want this to be something that people look at to say, why are the people in Rick's gym getting so much better? Why are they recovering faster? Why are they not out due to the injuries that we all suffer when we practice this craft?
Right.
We get injured. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they getting better? Well, the reason is because Rejuvgen is right there. Right. We're training hard.
Dude, that's so convenient.
And we're covering. We're doing the things to recover. We're doing compression therapy. We're doing, a hot cold therapy. We're doing sauna. We're doing
the cold tanks.
Yeah, we're doing PEMF, PEMF. We're doing all that stuff to help us recover faster so we get back to practicing our craft faster.
Nice. That's awesome. I can't wait to check out the place. It's going to be in Chandler.
It's in Chandler. They're right next to Rick's gym. It's almost school in Germain. Right. And I can't wait because I can tell you that we're going to the plan is for us to blow all the rest of the schools out of the water. That's what we'd like to do. We'd like, we have a great gym.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Our gym is great. But just imagine if you had that right next to the gym.
Yeah.
You train
We're
hard.
going to be a problem for it.
You train hard.
Yep.
And we're beat up. Well, now we're going to hop into the cold tub.
Recover.
We're going to spend some time in the sauna. We're going to put the compression boots on in the zero gravity chair for a little bit.
Yep. And then you come back the next day and do it again.
The next day.
Yeah. That's going to be so awesome.
We train hard. We recover hard. And so we can get back to training hard again. That's the whole principle behind it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I can't wait to check it out. Yeah. And if you guys are in the Chandler area, definitely check out Rick Centron's gym and Rejuvgen once they're opened up. And grand opening December 16th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out there and helping you out with some of the stuff too, wherever I can. I mean, I don't know what I'll do. I'll do some of the manual labor, you know. But yeah, with that, make sure you guys go. Where can people find you? Where do you want them to look you up?
You can go to Instagram, Rejuvgen, REJUVEGEN.
Okay, Rejuvgen on Instagram.
I'm sorry, I don't even know how to spell it. REJUVGEN. Rejuvgen on Instagram, Rejuvgen.com. Also, we're working on the website right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, definitely. You guys go check it out. Follow them on Instagram. Check out the website. Make sure you guys go to fightingforyourlifepodcast.com. Let people know about the podcast. Subscribe, share an episode with them, and make sure you guys, do the best you can to help us out. But thanks for being with us, and we'll talk to you guys next time.